how quickly some people forget. Now everyone's raving about Wonder Woman and praising Patty Jenkins. But they forget who is the one that put down the blueprint for Wonder Woman. Her fighting style, her movements, her characteristics, and her personality. People forget that Wonder Woman was the best thing in Batman v Superman. That was Zack Snyder that cast Gal Gadot. The same Gal Gadot that they said was too skinny. Couldn't act. Horrible director's choice. Miscasting for Wonder Woman. How quickly we forget. Zack Snyder put down the blueprint for how Wonder Woman would fight, how she would deal with enemies. She had a shield, she had a sword, and she had a lasso. And in Batman v Superman, he defined her character. A warrior, never backing down, and smiling when the challenge seems to be one worthy of her honor of fighting. She says, "I've fought other creatures from other worlds before." Yes, ladies and gentlemen, Zack Snyder put down the blueprint for Wonder Woman. Anyone tell you otherwise don't know squat. And I'm telling you now about this because I want to show you how important Zack Snyder is to the DCEU and why the DCEU cannot do without him and why the president of Warner Brothers, Tommy Emmerich, said what he said. I also want to make it abundantly clear that Jeff Johns in no wise and in no circumstance disagrees with Zack Snyder. And the main reason why I say Jeff Johns and Zack Snyder are in agreement is because Jeff Johns knows what Zack Snyder is doing with his characters, knew what the foundation work was, because Zack Snyder had to talk with Jeff Johns about it. So make no mistake, Zack Snyder is an integral part of the DCEU. He's the guy that's forming the framework for each character in the DCEU. So now when you look at Wonder Woman, you see that Zack Snyder showed you how she uses her lasso. He showed you her character. He showed you the weapons she has. He showed you her super strength and superpowers. All in Batman v Superman. So that when you saw her in Wonder Woman, you were able to appreciate her. Again, more of her character. Nobody ever saw a superheroine behave like this. In fact, she's the only one that was taking on Doomsday. Do understand that. Wonder Woman debuted in one of the most spectacular debuts and entrances ever, protecting Batman. And she did the famous cross-arm posture with the bracelets. Now, just to put this into context, so you guys will understand, this is one of her most famous poses or moves. All actors before Gal Gadot never did the cross-arm stance like how Gal is doing it now. Gal learned this stance from none other than Zack Snyder, showing her how to produce the stance. It wasn't going to be a cross-arm stance where the hands are overlapping at the elbows, but they are crossed outward, away from the chest, as if in a martial arts block. That is different from holding the arms close to the chest and crossing them near to the elbows, which is what Wonder Woman did before Gal Gadot and Zack Snyder came and showed her how he wanted her to do it. So now everyone is raving over Wonder Woman. She gets her own movie and she's making these moves and they look spectacular. Not understanding the choreography is from Zack Snyder's fight choreographers from 300. That's why it looks so good. She'll be showing up in another Zack Snyder film, Justice League. And once again, Zack Snyder knows how to position her. He wrote her story in Wonder Woman. He gave her history. And if you go and you watch the Wonder Woman DVD or Blu-ray, you'll get more from Zack Snyder about Wonder Woman. Because Zack Snyder, people talk about Joss Whedon, Zack Snyder knows comic book history and lore. And if he don't know something, there's Jeff Johns. Because Zack Snyder don't operate by himself. He's a team player. He's working with John Berg, Jeff Johns, Charles Roven, Deborah Snyder. I keep saying it over and over again. So now everybody's raving about Wonder Woman. And very few people realize that Wonder Woman is just as much a product of Zack Snyder. In fact, is Zack Snyder's product. Because it's Zack Snyder that introduced her to the world in Batman v Superman. And it's Zack Snyder's story that Patty Jenkins was directing. Of course, huge kudos to Patty Jenkins. But the point is, it's Zack Snyder's vision. Not as in terms of directorial vision, but in terms of story. So Zack can easily take Wonder Woman now in Justice League and continue on with her. I'm saying all of this just so you understand how integral Zack Snyder is to the DCEU. Not done. Let's talk about Wonder Woman's box office. So, as of yesterday, Monday the 21st, 2017, Wonder Woman now has accumulated $404,125,059. Worldwide Kume has risen by $100,000. And, very interestingly enough, coming out of the weekend, hold on a second. Coming out of the weekend, our box office for Monday, the 21st of August, is $124,343. Now, that's not a tremendous fall. So that's very interesting. And why this is even more interesting is because it will at least gross over $100,000 for at least 3 days out of this 5-day week. And by weekend, it'll gross a little bit more as well. So basically, out of the 5-day week, only one day I expect it to go under $100,000. It's very interesting how Wonder Woman is doing. It's really doing fantastically well at the box office. Now, Wonder Woman, of course, is going to be in Justice League. But I want to highlight something else. I want to highlight The Flash once again. And I want to talk about how Zack Snyder is laying down a blueprint for the Flash as well. Now, you look at the Flash's suit and everything, and some people criticize the suit. They call it Power Rangers. They criticized Ezra Miller and the suit and everything, right? Now, if you look at the Flash, this is his suit here. You're watching him. How much is he varying from the actual Flash? How is he different from the actual Flash? Okay. So the actual Flash has a one-piece suit. Now, which Flash looks more like the Flash? Grant Gustin's Flash or Ezra Miller's Flash? I argue Ezra Miller's Flash. There's Ezra Miller's Flash in action. Yes, he has different pieces put together, but look at him running and everything. And look at the actual Flash. This is the actual Flash here. Besides the fact that the Flash's suit is a one-piece suit, more or less, or two pieces, right? You look at Ezra Miller's Flash and how he appears, and he very much looks like that Flash. Okay, this is Injustice Flash, no doubt about that. And Ezra Miller's suit looks something like more like the Injustice Flash. Because Ezra Miller is so slim and streamlined, this is Flash, or Grant Gustin's Flash, sort of like. And here's Ezra Miller's Flash right here. And quite frankly, they both look like the Flash. In fact, I would say that Ezra Miller's Flash looks very much like the Flash. Okay? Here's the Flash here. And Ezra Miller's Flash very much looks like that. Okay? He's got little pieces on his suit, but for the most part, he looks like the Flash. So I'm not too sure why people talk about Ezra Miller's Flash as if he doesn't look like the Flash and he's too, PC. Well, science, ladies and gentlemen, science. Besides, he's going to have, at the end of the movie, a different suit, I'm pretty sure. Because he's got, his original suit gets banged up and all that stuff I saw. But he reminds me a lot of the Flash, so I'm not really sure what people are saying. And the weird thing about it is, no one ever put flack on Grant Gustin's Flash. And Grant Gustin's Flash departs a bit from the Flash, the standard Flash we know, in his costume. So I don't understand. I really don't understand the double standard. I just don't get it. Now, I want to talk about one more thing. Zack Snyder, very recently there, he showed the last shot of Jason Momoa in Iceland. Iceland is very cold. And Momoa was bareback and everything. I don't even know. But you can see Momoa there throwing his hands up in the air as if to say, yeah! Jason Momoa, oh my gosh. He really lives life to the fullest. And it's fun to watch Jason Momoa in action. He is quite a fun character. But I want to show you again the genius of Zack Snyder. Zack Snyder again laying the blueprint for Aquaman. So, the first time we saw Aquaman was in Batman v Superman. He shoots off like a tornado, okay? Now, what I found very cool about this was the fact that Jason Momoa, he was able to do this underwater. He actually did it. This was actually underwater. He did this footage. And people said he looked like he was holding his breath because he just kind of stayed there floating in the water for a minute, and then he did this and just stabbed the camera, and he pushed the camera away. See him push the camera away and just take off with a blast, almost like supersonic speed underwater. It's really crazy. Nonetheless, the interesting thing about the whole thing is that people had different things to say. They said, oh, he looked like he was holding his breath. Some people said Aquaman's the coolest thing they ever seen underwater. The thing was, it looked very organic. And especially those glowing eyes. Look at this glowing eyes here. You got to see this again. Look at this, people. This is so sick. It's a wreckage of a ship. You see the glowing eyes. And he comes out. So sick. Nonetheless, that's not the point. The point is, this is when he was introduced. Zack Snyder showing him in his underwater habitat. And apparently the U.S. government was actually looking at this strange life form underneath the water. I don't know why. And they're saying what kind of trench, too. They say something trench. Okay, there's lots of data here, which I think is so cool. They make fiction look real and appear real. That's why I love Zack Snyder. So we first saw it, and it was all this controversy. I just want to bring it to your remembrance. Controversy behind it. In comes Zack Snyder, and he shows some footage of Aquaman. Some early footage of Aquaman for the Justice League movie. And you can see him here swimming up to what seems to be his armor on a statue of some kind. You can see in the background also what looks like a guard here with another staff of some kind. Okay. Now I don't know if these are ancient armor or what, but he's rolling up to this statue. This is not a king. I don't think it's an actual king. Well, it could be, but I don't think so. Now, we see this, and that's probably Zack Snyder looking at it, or it could be James Wan. But this is the blueprint for James Wan to deal with underwater filming, okay? Now, when we saw Justice League, the actual Justice League movie, let's freeze it a second so you can see here the soldier guard here. You can see what looks like a king. Now, it could actually be the king of Atlantis he's swimming up to, or it can just be a stone where his armor's on it, and he has to take his armor up and take his staff. Now, I'm not too sure which one it is, but it's very interesting. And the point is that Zack Snyder shows this formula. Now, we see it, again, in much better resolution in the actual Justice League movie, and I'll just pull a snippet from that. So here is Aquaman swimming up. They don't show the whole thing, but you can see there again, he's swimming up to something right here, right? He's swimming up to it. I love the different angles. Now, the thing about this is not Aquaman actually swimming in water, okay? He's not actually in water. So Zack Snyder broke the formula of how to deal with the physics of being underwater, okay? So when we saw the very first Aquaman images, which are these here, Aquaman was actually in, Jason Momoa was actually in water. Okay? Actually in water. But Zack Snyder found a way to simulate water, to simulate that underwater environment. And this, they're not underwater, but it looks that way. It looks very real, doesn't it? And this is what James Wan takes with him and took with him in shooting Aquaman. Again, Zack Snyder formulates the formula. He breaks the code so that the other directors can use this code. This is what I'm telling you about Zack Snyder. We see also with Mira. Mira's again underwater. She feels like she's swimming underwater. And Mira, here again, is moving underwater with guards. Alright? So Zack Snyder breaks the code. He shows James Wan, oh, this is how we can do it. This is how things can be done. And from there on in, James Wan has to take that now and film the movie. Patty Jenkins. Patty Jenkins had the assistance of Zack Snyder's 300 fight coordinators, and she also had the help of Zack Snyder's special effects and visual effects staff that he uses, okay, to do his movies and the CGI and whatever he has, because Zack Snyder would have, of course, a copy of the digital double for Gal Gadot, which he would have used in Batman v Superman. So you have to understand, when Patty Jenkins went in to make Wonder Woman, she wasn't building something from scratch. Zack had pretty much put down some templates for her to be able to utilize it. She could focus more on directing story, on directing, because she had all the resources necessary for Wonder Woman. That's why I'm telling you, Zack Snyder is an integral part of the DCEU, guys. Don't let anybody fool you, okay? So I just wanted to point out this. Freeze framing right there. So I wanted to point out this because I think a lot of times when you hear people say, oh, Zack Snyder needs to be removed from the DCEU, you don't remove Zack Snyder from the DCEU. He's an integral piece of the DCEU, okay? And for the people who talk about, oh, Zack Snyder, he doesn't make good movies. These people are stupid idiots, okay? They're idiots, okay? Because this is revolutionary what Zack Snyder's doing. Nobody's ever shot underwater dry and being able to simulate underwater stuff. No one. Aquaman's going to be the first full-fledged movie where you're doing underwater work and dealing with the undersea world and the underworld. So anyone telling you that Zack Snyder, you know, he's a fraud and Zack Murderverse and stuff, you know, these people don't know what they're talking about. I showed you The Flash. I showed you Aquaman and why Zack Snyder is so cool. And now I'm showing you, I also showed you Wonder Woman. Alright? And anybody saying, oh, Grant Gustin's Flash is a better Flash and he's a better... These people are stupid, okay? They're stupid people. Okay? And Grant Gustin should have played the Flash. They're stupid people. Don't listen to them, okay? And I'll tell you why they're stupid. Because, again, when you look at what Zack Snyder is doing and why he picked Ezra Miller, because he picked Ezra Miller to do The Flash. Ezra Miller's a nerdy kind of guy, and he's really into comics, okay? So you need to have a nerdy kind of dude to play the Flash, because the Flash is a nerd. He's into forensics for the reason of trying to liberate his father. He's a nerd. You want a nerdy guy. You don't want an athlete. You want a nerd. And so, again, Zack knew what he was doing when he was picking the characters, because Zack is not only an avid fan of the comics and knows his comics pretty good, but also Zack Snyder has the capacity to bring to life those things we've read in comics. And for those people who say, you know, the comic book characters are not exactly like the comic book characters, okay, sometimes they're not exactly like them. But which rendition have you seen that's exactly like the comics? There's nothing like that. My point being, Zack captures the essence and the spirit of the characters. But even besides all of that, the stuff that Zack is doing with these characters is just simply groundbreaking. It's groundbreaking stuff. And shows how much of a visionary Zack Snyder is. Anyway, on that note, you guys leave your comments in the comment section below, because I got more videos coming, but not tonight. You guys have a great night. On that note, you guys have a good one.